Many of y'all over the years have heard us talk about our affiliation and our partnership with Converge and Vision Texas. That is the organization that actually this church started from. And we are still a part of that organization. And many times we can forget that there are a lot of others that we're connected to out there and get super focused on just what we're doing here. And I don't want us to ever lose sight of that. And I always want to make sure that our church and our staff and our leadership knows that we're not in this alone. I'm grateful to be a part of Converge, and oftentimes it's helpful to put names and faces with the affiliations and organizations that we are a part of. We're not just one in a number. We matter to them, and they matter to us. And so I'm grateful today for the opportunity to introduce to you Brad Wilkerson, who is the Director of Church Planting for Vision Texas. He's basically the guy. So we're part of Converge Southwest, and then Texas has its own kind of subgroup of Converge, and we are a part of that actively. And Brad is here with us today, and I wanted to give him just a few minutes just to talk to y'all, and I wanted to introduce him because I don't think y'all have ever met any of these Converge or Vision Texas guys. They're good dudes, and so give me a hand for Brad here.
Okay, I'll be quick. Ruth chapter 4. Grab your Bibles. Ruth chapter 4. We're going to dive in. Now, I'll be real quick. Converge is a really, really old organization. Converge actually started in 1878. Swedish immigrants landed in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, Illinois, Wisconsin, and decided to start a movement in 1878 to plant churches in unreached areas. And in particular, these Swedish immigrants named their movement the Swedish Baptist General Conference. And in the 1920s, as it began to expand into the entire United States, they realized their churches were full of people that weren't Swedish. So they dropped the Swedish, and they became the Baptist General Conference, or the BGC for short. And 15 years ago, they renamed it and rebranded Converge. So I want to take you back to 2006. Now that you kind of know a little history about Converge. In 2006, my wife and I were doing exactly what Adam and Stephanie are doing. We were serving in a church, in a local church. I was leading worship. Isn't that ironic? I was the executive pastor and the worship pastor. And God began to move on my wife and I's heart about starting a church in the Prosper, Texas area. We're 40 miles north of Dallas. It looks just like this area, booming with people, growing like crazy, and everybody in our area is moving from California. And so it's like a mass migration to North Dallas. So we got this desire in 2006 to plant a church. I got connected with this organization called the Baptist General Conference at the time, and they sent us to a church planting assessment center for a week. And on the other side of that, we got a full recommend to plant a church. But beyond that, this is crazy, but 15 years ago, when we went to the assessment center and we went through our exit interview, where they said, you got the green light, you guys have the building blocks that we think is necessary to start a church. They challenged us not to start a church. They challenged us to start a church planting movement in Texas. And here's why. Because there were no Converge churches in Texas. I know that's hard to believe, but in 2006, there wasn't one Converge church in what I call the great nation of Texas, right? When I go to Converge meetings, I always say I'm from the great nation of Texas, but they hate that, but it's okay. So we started our church with not any inclination or idea of how to start a church planting movement, but we agreed by faith that we would do it. And then that faith had no action, so God made it happen. He started sending people into our lives that wanted to start churches. And so we started the process, and we planted the first church, Movement Church, like in 2010, and then another church in 2011, and then another church in 2012. And what happened was there was a guy who somehow got my email that wanted to start a church in Northeast San Antonio. And so we began a relationship with the founding pastor of this church and his wife, the Jeffreys. We sent them to assessment. They passed. And as a result, this church was planted in Schertz, now about 8 years ago. And here was the challenge. Here was the original challenge. Don't just plant a church in Northeast San Antonio. Because we have no churches here as a part of Converge. And so start a church planting movement that will plant more churches in the San Antonio area. That was the original plan. And of course, there's been a journey here. There's been a journey, and there's been a departure of the founding pastor, and then there's been a departure of the second pastor, and now you're being led by Adam and Stephanie. And I want to tell you, I've been here all weekend. I've met with your staff. I've spent time with Adam. I've met with some of your key leaders. I am more encouraged and more excited about Rock Point Church than I have ever been. I think you guys are poised for what's next. I want to tell you, God does big things in small numbers. It starts with small numbers. I mean, he feeds 20,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves. Come on, he can do great things with small numbers. Our church started in 2008, guys, with 24 adults and 10 kids. 24 adults, 10 kids in the waiting room of a chiropractic office in 2008. Okay? Last weekend, I preached 4 times to over 2,500 people. God does big things with small people who have great faith that will act on that faith. Okay? He's going to do that here. And I just have been here this weekend just to reiterate my commitment to you guys. And so, you're in a journey. You're answering emails or sending emails. You're answering questions about who the next pastor of the church might be. Here's what you need to know about Converge. The churches in Converge are autonomous. You guys can call whoever you want to call as pastor. We don't dictate to you who your pastor is. And here's the thing. You're being led by a guy who wants to get it right this time. He wants to make sure that you guys have a voice in it and you get it right. I'm committed, fully committed. I pastor a church, but I also lead this movement in Texas. I'm fully committed to mentor and help whoever your next pastor is. Personally, I'm praying that it's Adam. I'm praying that God would just lead Adam into that and call him into it and solidify that, and you guys would affirm that. That's up to y'all. You have my word. If that's what happens, I will pour into him for at least 2 years, and I will give everything I got. Here's the thing. We're 15 years down the road, and on our journey, we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. We're Farmers Insurance Agency. We've made a lot of stupid decisions and paid a lot of dumb tax. I don't want you guys to pay the dumb tax anymore. I want to help you. And so I'm all in with this. And so I wanted to come down this weekend, see what God was doing here, and I am really, really encouraged and refreshed. I know it's spring break weekend. Don't worry about that. That's why I'm here this weekend, because I could leave my church and let the student pastor preach this weekend, because half my church is gone, right? So we're all in together. We've had Converge meetings right here in this room. We've probably had 5 Converge Vision Texas meetings in this room throughout the history of y'all's church, and we've had boot camps that have been held here. So this has been a vital, this church has been a vital player in Vision Texas. So we're excited. By the way, we have 13 churches in Texas now. We have 13 churches. And we have 5 couples that have gone through assessment that are on the other side of that have yet to launch. 2 of the 5 got caught in the COVID wave, where they were about to launch and then COVID hit, and so they're still on a journey. But we're going to get those 5 churches launched. I'm 53. And I'm going to retire sometime around 63 to 65, I hope. And my vision and plan is I want to see 30 churches in Texas before I'm done leading this. So I'm super excited. Thank you for having us this weekend. Adam, greetings from my wife, Sarah. And we love you guys, and we're with you guys. And so whatever you need, we're all in. Thanks for sticking with us. We're sticking with you guys, okay? God bless.